And good morning, good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. I am Annika Rembe, the Consul General of Sweden in New York, and it is, of course, with great excitement that I greet you. Welcome to this virtual meeting, and a meeting on collaboration between Sweden, but more important, the New York State. I am extremely happy to welcome all our New York partners, but also all the participants in Sweden connecting today. I think this event is timely, as both Sweden and New York are looking into how we can build back better in the time when COVID and the COVID pandemic has affected our societies and economies profoundly. The strategies for the future, however, need to be managed wisely. Millions of jobs could be either lost or created, depending on our choices in the years to come. And that's why a meeting like this is so extremely important. Sweden is, compared to many others, a small country. And our economy is export-oriented, with an export value close to the equivalent of 45% of the GDP. We invest heavily in R&D, over 3% of GDP, and we are home of numerous world-leading automation companies, strong basic industry, leading IT and telecommunications companies, and of course, many new innovative startups in the forefront of digitalization. And one basic success factor for Sweden has been the collaboration on a national level between stakeholders from government, academia, and industry, what we call the concept of triple helix, where we bring together these stakeholders to discuss, to develop, and to implement innovative solutions in many, many different areas. And this is exactly what we are trying together to do here today. Sweden would absolutely not be where it is today if it has not been for its international collaboration. Being so dependent on export and being a small nation, we have a strong need, but also a strong wish for international collaboration. And the way to achieve sustainable development, which I think we all know we are looking for today, is through continuous improvements and innovations emerging from fruitful partnerships. Looking at today's theme in meeting the future of smart mobility and public safety, I believe that most certainly collaboration is a key. As a leader within both traffic safety through our Vision Zero strategy and more generally in public safety, Sweden is today working with many countries and cities around the globe to share knowledge and best practices. And we see, of course, a great potential of furthering our collaboration with New York State. It is a fact that without digitalization, we will not achieve a higher standard of smart, sustainable, and safe cities. And this is one of the reasons why the Swedish government has made digitalization across industry and society a national priority. New York State has in recent years rolled out one of the nation's largest and most ambitious state investments in broadband expansions throughout remote areas and underserved areas, and is also one of the states with the highest level of commercially available 5G rollout. As Swedes, I have to say we're proud that Ericsson has paved the way for the future of telecommunications for over a century, and including, of course, the latest 5G infrastructure in the US and globally. It is the connectivity platforms that are creating the conditions for involving industrial and societal applications, leading the innovative new services and driving cross-border collaboration. So just to sum up, digital technologies do indeed enable sustainable innovation and will help solve the challenges that we are facing together, such as an increased demand for smart transportation and safety in the cities. And we do need to work together. Digitalization also gives us an opportunity to work across border in societies that are more or less borderless. So I hope that today's event will be fruitful and that the outcome will be a strong partnership in innovation and digitalization between New York State and Sweden. And even though I will maybe later close my to this seminar, and I can assure you that both my deputy Annette Nilsson-Exner and I will be around whenever to support the future collaboration. And with that, Morten, I will give the word back to you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Annika. Lovely to hear about the collaboration and the great work that the Consulate General is doing as well to promote this type of collaboration between Sweden and New York in this case. Welcome as well to those that have joined in the last few minutes. My name is Morten Wilkins from Business Sweden. I am now happy to start the keynote presentations for the day, and starting out with our friend Edward Kowalowski from Empire State Development. He is Director of International Investment Programs and will give us some insight to how the state is working with these initiatives. Please, Ed, the floor is yours. Ed, I apologize. I think you're still on mute. Erik?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, there we are. Thank you. Go ahead, Ed.
Good. How's that screen look?
Yep, we can see you fine, but not the sharing yet. Would you like us to upload the presentation, perhaps?
Let me try one more time. You're able to see the screen?
No.
Ed, are you having any with the share content here? It should be in the top right corner of your browser. You can just click that and then show your presentation from there.
Okay, that's what I've done. Are you getting any indication of sharing?
No. Did you select the window that you wanted to share, so you get a choice of a specific screen that you can share? So not your entire desktop.
There you go. How's that?
Yes.
There we go.
Very good. Okay. I apologize for the technical delay. For those in the audience, Empire State Development is the state's economic development organization, and in short, it's our job to attract businesses to the state and to create some level of prosperity across the state. The tools that we have are the common tools for economic development organizations. Those include financial incentives. We work with developing a site and finding real estate for a business. We provide small business services to those new to the state, and we also assist in marketing companies to help ensure some level of prosperity. The next couple of slides are really meant as a bit of a geography lesson. New York is a long way from Sweden, but I did want to at least illustrate that New York State shares a border with Canada, and there's a significant portion of the Canadian marketplace that is just a short drive from places in New York State. I'm actually speaking to you from Buffalo, and I can walk to Canada from where I am this morning, and again, that's sort of an advantage to companies that are interested in doing business in the U.S., in New York, and also in Canada. Again, not so much to show you the airports, but the map illustrates our city, as well as the upstate cities of Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, Albany, Troy. So you'll find that those upstate cities, frankly, are quite accessible. I wanted to sort of speak to the breadth of New York industries, and these are what we consider our strategic industries in the state. I will say, though, that I spent about 3 hours yesterday working with some very young life sciences companies, and out of that group, 60% had products that needed to connect for remote applications. And as I knew I was going to have this meeting today, I began to ask questions about connectivity and how they intended to move sensor information from medical sensors, and 5G is one of the areas, certainly, where the medical companies have a bit of a gap. So I think that there are, just sort of illustrates the movement of products and digital medicine as just one of these sectors where I think that will be significantly impacted by 5G. The Consul General had mentioned that New York was leading in terms of broadband, and frankly, I just wanted to illustrate that we're in year 5 of a $500 million deployment. That deployment, I think, still offers some possibility for Swedish companies to get involved if they were interested in getting involved. Most of what we do is very open, and the data in terms of opportunities, in terms of companies that were awarded products or projects, is fully available online, including our program guidelines, should you want to apply in the future for any of this work. The $500 million are still a bit left, and we expect to be spending that, expending that down. But I understand that there will be a future commitment to additional broadband projects. Companies from Sweden, or technology companies in New York, have the ability to take advantage of our rather robust educational infrastructure. So whether you're sort of fully commercialized or you're a bit of a young company and perhaps even a startup, companies in New York can take advantage of our centers of advanced technology and centers of excellence. I frankly wanted to throw a couple of them up. In my these centers are repositories of not only academic knowledge, but companies are in and out of these centers of advanced technologies on a daily basis. I think Swedish companies might find this interesting to find out who's there and frankly what they're working on, and if there are some opportunities for partnership. Frankly, a couple more of them, including New York City, where we have a Center for Advanced Technology and Telecommunications, and again, here in Western New York, we're dealing with big data and health sciences, but the connection to 5G is increasing. I wanted to also illustrate our centers of excellence, where we undertake both research and product commercialization and product localization in a wide variety of technical disciplines. But you know, the school environmental at Syracuse University is working with certainly with sensors and monitoring forest and environmental conditions. They have a 9-story building there that is fully instrumented as a building where you can test all kinds of indoor and building products and collect all of that sort of information, whether it's temperatures, humidity, dust in the air. You know, if you have a product that deals with indoor air quality or environmental sciences, those are some places that you might want to consider. And again, I'd sort of mentioned life sciences, but I'd be remiss if I didn't sort of in as areas of both research and collaboration for Swedish companies. Again, the Center of Excellence at Stony Brook, I wanted to point out and sort of highlight some infrastructure that's present there. You know, New York State certainly offers an opportunity for Swedish companies to consider as they hit their growth spurt and are interested in market entry. New York, in addition to broadband, has made significant commitments to other kinds of infrastructure, whether it's sort of upgrades to our transportation systems, our airports, rail and bridges, and frankly, we're hoping that New York State investments will be married with some federal investments in the not too distant future. New York, like Sweden, has a rather robust amount of spending in research and development. So I think Swedish companies again would be quite comfortable with the business climate and the rate of innovation that exists in New York State. Again, sort of a bit of a highlight, but we have the largest offshore wind project in the United States right now. and 5G technologies are part of the infrastructure. Some of the partners in our offshore wind projects are European companies, and they brought some of this technology with them. Last but not least, in terms of supporting growth, our venture capital, both our private sector and venture capital, but the state has its own venture capital fund that we target early stage seed and early stage investments. An opportunity for me to brag a little bit about New York State, where biotech and life sciences is key. Clean tech and renewables, again, I think those are opportunities for collaboration for 5G companies. Agribusiness, tech and electronics, machinery, and software and digital media are all part of our growth. We have a talented workforce. We have a very robust and deep-rooted educational system, both public and private, and we certainly have programs to support Swedish companies should they make the decision to consider New York as part of their thinking. Again, incentives, support to early stage and startup companies, and if you're sort of fully commercialized, we still have the ability to support you. And I'd be remiss if I didn't again highlight our business plan competition. We have several of them across the state. We had $1 million prizes. First prize is $1 million. Second prize is $500,000. And I will tell you that international companies have been winning both the major prizes as well as some of the lesser prizes. I thought I would just briefly highlight our Excelsior job program whenever we talk about financial incentives. The next question is, tell me a little bit about the financial incentives. Excelsior is our lead program. We offer tax credits for job creation. We do it by industry category. You'll see that scientific research and development, you need a minimum of five jobs. If you happen to be a manufacturer, 5 jobs. Software and software development, net new 5 jobs. But we can find a way to qualify your company. If you happen to be a manufacturer, New York State reduces your corporate tax to 0. Again, we have the Excelsior tax credit program with a 0% corporate tax liability. These tax credits are fully refundable and will come back to you in terms of cash. The tax credits are about 6.85% of the wages, and we pay those tax credits out typically over multiple year periods, and in many cases up to 10 years. If you do any additional research and development, there's an additional tax credit that goes on top of that. And if you happen to invest in real estate, particularly in distressed areas, there's some additional tax credits that are available. That's pretty much Empire State Development and what we do, and hopefully we've been able to highlight some areas where 5G companies may intersect with activities that both the state is doing as well as our educational institutions. Martin?
Excellent. Thank you very much, Edward. Very interesting to hear from you and the perspective across the state. And starting, let's say, in the west of the state, we're going to move up northwards now. Very, very interesting to hear about these competitions, Ed, and we hope we will motivate Swedish companies to engage in those with you as well. And in terms of job creation, it's estimated that somewhere between 200 and 300,000 jobs in the US are supported by foreign direct investment here. So we hope to continue that trend as well. Now then, moving from west to north, I would like to introduce Joel Wood, Director of the North American Center of Excellence for Transportation Equipment at the North Country Chamber of Commerce. Joel, please.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, as I understand it. Can everyone hear me okay?
You're a bit close to the camera because you got the spotlight now, but we hear you fine.
Perfect, wonderful. All right, let me back up a little bit, make sure that everyone can see me, and I'll get my presentation going.
Excellent, there we go.
Whoops. All right, can everyone see that okay?
Just a second. In process. We can't see anything yet, Joel.
Okay, hold on just one second. Let me make sure.
That's okay. Eric, do you want to pull up the presentation and we can just go through it for you, Joel?
How does that look? Is that better?
Let's see. Not yet.
Joel, I'm happy to share my screen here with your presentation. If you're having any issues, that's no problem from our end.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead, Eric, and then you can just tell us when to pass slides, Joel.
Nope, that works perfect. Let me know when it's pulled up.
All right.
Excellent.
Let me know when you can see it.
Yeah, we can see yours now.
All right.
Perfect, wonderful. Thank you, Eric. So, good morning and introduction, and thank you to Business Sweden and the Consulate General of Sweden for having us here today. I'd also like to thank New York State Empire State Development, Lauren Merkel, for making the introduction. We're happy to be here. My name is Joel Wood. I'm the director of the North American Center of Excellence for Transportation Equipment, also shortened down to NAmTrans. We are a strategic subsidiary of the North Country Chamber of Commerce, located in Plattsburgh, New York, which is up north. You know, Edward mentioned that he could walk to Canada. We're about a 30-minute drive north to the Canadian border, and then only about another 30-minute drive north and you would hit Montreal. You see down at the bottom here of the home slide, NYMTL, where New York meets Montreal. That's actually the logo and slogan that we're developing for our new foreign direct investment website that's dedicated to the North Country, upstate New York. And the reason being is our proximity, right? We work with Canadian companies, US subsidiaries of Canadian companies here. And I'll get to that in a moment, but in the meantime, we can advance the slide. Perfect. So the North Country Chamber of Commerce, some of you are, I'm sure most of you are familiar with the concept of a Chamber of Commerce. Ours is a little different. We represent over 4,300 business members, actual businesses across upstate, really the 5-county region, Clinton, Franklin, Essex, Hamilton, and Northern Warren counties in upstate New York. So it's a large geographic area. Very rural, but strong in business, especially manufacturing, and I'll come back to that. Here at the Chamber, we have 11 full-time staff support members. We focus on business support and member services, as well as government advocacy and economic development. Our expertise and what sets us apart from other chambers really is our economic development focus. I work in the economic development department here at the Chamber, as well as being the director of NAmTrans, so I wear 2 hats. But when it comes to economic development, we really are successful and have a long, proud history of assisting international companies in establishing or growing their presence here in the U.S., or even entering the market in terms of exporting. We host a couple of events to help companies do that. One of which is our Doing Business in the U.S. events, which is a very basic informational event where we bring in local experts in the field. So things such as accounting, attorneys, 3PLs, banks, staffing agencies, immigration experts, to really give international companies a sense of what it's like to do business in the U.S. It's not so much North Country focused. We bring in, New York State, Empire State Development, and really what we're helping those companies understand is what it would take to enter the U.S. market. Of course, we're happy if you come here. It would be very easy to change that NYMTL logo to say, instead of where New York meets Montreal, where New York welcomes Sweden, right? But we help international companies in a general sense in that way. We also have our red carpet services, and that's a little more advanced. So that's when we would welcome a company who may be looking to actually set up an operation here, an actual physical presence in the North Country, where we bring those experts back once more. Maybe we bring you out to the site you're looking at, and we talk about all of the things, financial incentives, what you need to know, things of that nature. So. I mentioned manufacturing. It's a key industry here in the North Country. It's actually identified as the transportation equipment manufacturing specifically was identified by the state of New York as the key industry for the North Country region. So to support that, we developed NAmTrans. So Eric, if you want to advance the slide. And NAmTrans is, as I mentioned, it's a really long name. I won't go over it again, but we are a strategic subsidiary of the North Country Chamber of Commerce, and our mission is twofold. We serve the cluster of over 50 transportation equipment and aerospace manufacturers in the greater North Country region. We do that in a number of ways: workforce recruitment and retention programs, employee training programs, technical support, general company promotion and awareness, networking and B2B events, which I'll touch on in a second because it's a great way for international companies to kind of start making that connection with our transportation equipment cluster. And of course, that government advocacy, ensuring that those federal and state elected officials are aware of the needs of our cluster. We also build active working partnerships between our cluster and other transportation equipment and aerospace clusters in New York, Quebec, and beyond. But really, this is a unique concept. You don't find many of these in New York State. Edward talked about those centers of excellence and centers of technology, research and development. This is a unique concept in the way that we don't do research and development so much. We work on those things that I just mentioned, but we modeled ourselves after colleagues in Canada at the Quebec Ground Transportation Cluster. And we have a great working relationship with them. And our proximity, our incentive packages in New York State, our heritage, right? As a manufacturing hub, we never lost our manufacturing heritage. We have a great workforce here who knows how to manufacture. Our training resources, such as the Institute for Advanced Manufacturing in Plattsburgh at Clinton Community College and Clarkson University. And then our economies of scale, right? Our suppliers that we have because of the cluster have all led to Canadian companies choosing Plattsburgh and upstate New York in general as their entryway into the U.S., right? Their first step into the United States is here. And that's why 50% of all of our cluster companies are U.S. subsidiaries of foreign companies, primarily Canada. Eric, if you want to advance the slide. So I won't spend too long here. This is just a chart. You can refer back to it later. It's a timeline of the development of our cluster. But what I want to focus on is that movement at the center of prosperity. That's our focus here in Plattsburgh at the North Country Chamber of Commerce and NAmTrans, understanding that where things move, prosperity occurs. And that's why we focus so heavily on transportation equipment manufacturing, because and it's really ties into our conversation that we're having here today. We will always move goods and people. The way that you move goods and people may change, right? One day, they've been talking about it for a long time. One day there may be flying cars, right? It's a wild example. But we're talking about autonomous vehicle technology. So the way that you move goods and people will change, but those companies that produce the things that move goods and people will adapt, evolve, and lead the way. And we're seeing our companies do that. Eric, next slide. So this is the 50 plus companies that make up our cluster. Everything that's highlighted in yellow has a Swedish tie, right, in some way or another. Novabus and Prevo, Swedish ties through the Volvo Group, a parent company. Bombardier Transportation as well. And Bombardier and Novabus and Prevo are really anchors, key legs to our transportation equipment cluster. They are the reason why we have 50 plus companies here. Everything in blue is an international company in some sense or another, and again, primarily Canadian. But this list doesn't include all of the other manufacturers here in upstate New York that aren't in transportation equipment manufacturing, such as Schluter Systems, a German company, Fujitsu, Japanese, Vfrost, German, Emirates, French. So we really excel, and our expertise is in assisting those international companies. Eric, next slide. So I mentioned some of those networking events and how it's a good way to become introduced with our region and our transportation equipment cluster. In May of 2019, we held our first ever NAmTrans Transportation Rendezvous and B2B event. We co-hosted that with our partners from Aero Montreal and Canada. We have our second iteration of that event scheduled for spring of next year. Of course, it's COVID dependent. We really want it to be an in-person event, so that date might change, but we will be holding it again. Our first event was wildly successful. We had over 150 companies from all over the world take part in over 80 B2B meetings where a lot of business was done. People made new connections, entered into new contracts. So we're excited for next time. We had panels, presentations, guest speakers from the federal governments of both Canada and the US. And we always do a company tour of one of our major companies at the end of the event. Last time it was Norse Titanium. Eric, next slide. So I mentioned that our companies are innovative, right? They're leading the way, really. Novabus has taken a look at the electrification of New York State transit fleets, right? So New York State is leading the way in the greening of our transportation system. They've set a goal of that 100% of truck and bus sales need to be electric by 2050, and 30% need to be 100% electric by 2030. So the governor allocated money in the 2021 budget to help do that. Novabus has partnered with companies like BAE Systems to develop lines such as the LFSE Plus, which is 100% electric long-range transit buses. They're positioning themselves as a leader, to really produce zero-emission, clean energy public transit vehicles. And it's important to note that Novabus is the only bus manufacturer in New York State, right here in Plattsburgh. It has that Swedish tie. And that's important because when a contract for a transit agency in New York State that is wholly funded by the state, meaning there are no federal dollars involved in that project, usually New York State manufacturers are put at the top of the list, right? We want to support our New York State manufacturers if it's a New York State contract. So that further establishes Novabus's role as a leader in clean energy, especially when it comes to train bus manufacturing. In addition to that, we have some rail projects that are happening, automatic train operation, ATOs. Bombardier just finished up a project on their Innova Metro 300 driverless trains. Those were assembled in Plattsburgh. They were actually shipped out on one of the largest commercial aircraft in the world out of Plattsburgh International Airport to be flown to Malaysia. It was a Malaysian project. So that was pretty neat, driverless trains. And then New York Air Brake, which is a company based out of Watertown, New York, is also working on an ATO called their Leader system. I'm not going to dive too deep into this. If you have access to the presentation, you can click on those links and read a little bit more yourself. But our companies are leading the way in this technology, but they're looking for partners, right? So Eric, next slide. So current and future projects, we're talking about partners for our companies, and who are some of those partners? Edward talked about some of those centers, right? Clarkson University is actually in the very early stages, planning stages of developing a Center for Electric, Connected, and Autonomous Technologies for Mobility. Clarkson University is located out in Potsdam, New York, so it's not too far from Plattsburgh. They're a leader in engineering, research, and development. They're truly a staple in terms of educational institutions here in New York State. And the purpose of this ECAT, if and when it is developed, and we're really truly hoping it will be, and we're a supporter of this initiative, the purpose of ECAT will be to perform that research, development, and design to help and assist electric and connected autonomous vehicles, especially the manufacturers of those vehicles. So they understand that there's a need and that it's the future, but they want to help with the research and development. And I have connected Business Sweden with Clarkson University to talk more about this project. Edward mentioned the Broadband for All initiative, so I'm not going to go over that again. But here in upstate New York, we've come a long way. But there is still a need, of course, and we really think that this might be a good partnership. And then last but not least, there's a need, right? So in New York State, we're very rural, so we don't have a lot of transit fleets ourselves. We have the manufacturers who make them for the MTA, for example, down in New York City. But we don't have a lot of transit fleets ourselves. But in 2023, Lake Placid, again, not far from Plattsburgh, 40 minutes away, will be hosting the 2023 World University Games. I'm sure there will be a delegation from Sweden. It's very exciting. And the organizers of the event are very interested in green transportation and even having early conversations about what that autonomous vehicle technology might look like. So there's a need here, even though we're primarily a manufacturing sector for those larger cities, there's still a need for the technology here as well. Eric, last slide. So I hope I didn't run too far over. Very excited and passionate about this subject, but really the main message here is that the North Country Chamber of Commerce and NAmTrans, we're here to help your business expand and grow in the U.S. market. We're here in upstate New York, but we support all of New York. If you have any questions or if we can be of any assistance, don't hesitate. My contact information is right here on the last slide. You can also visit northcountrychamber.com or NAmTrans.org to learn a little bit more about us.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Joel. Great to hear a bit more about those opportunities and the business that is being created along the north end of New York State. Now, shifting back towards New York again, we'd like to take on this sort of triple helix strategy that we've mentioned, where we always from Sweden's end try to join up and unite academia, private sector, and public sector in order to achieve this type of innovation. So I'd like to introduce Sharon Sputz, Executive Director of Strategic Programs at the Data Science Institute at Columbia University. Go ahead, Sharon.
Hi, thank you so much. And good morning, good afternoon. And let me try and share my presentation. Let me know whether or not it has shown up.
Yep, we can see that if you want to.
Okay, I'm just putting it into, it should be in presentation mode. Is it working for you guys? Okay. So thank you again. A pleasure to share with you one of my very, very favorite projects. As mentioned, I'm the executive director at the Data Science Institute at Columbia University. So if there are other things to talk about, I'm always willing and available. Data science is sort of a hot topic now. But we'll focus on this exciting project. So I have a few slides and then I have a nice video to share with everybody. And so the slides are a little bit technical and detailed, but I'm going to go through them relatively quickly. So Cosmos is the name of our project. It is really about bringing a next generation wireless testbed to New York City for a lot of experimentation. And that experimentation is really on multiple levels, and I'll talk more about that. What I just want to say on this slide is that there are a lot of people and a lot of organizations that are participating. So Rutgers is our lead. They have an indoor, I don't know if anybody's familiar with WinLab, but it's an indoor wireless test facility. And this is really taking that outside, but adding next generation components. This slide is just, again, to emphasize that we are a large team of people bringing this together. And now I just want to talk a little bit about how the program began. NSF, the National Science Foundation, recognized that they needed to make an investment to have these city-scale test beds for future wireless technologies. And so we came together with that large team of folks to put a proposal in, and we were awarded probably about 2 years ago, maybe a little bit more than that, to bring this into fruition. And the parts of this slide about millimeter wave, small cell, massive MIMO, beamforming, full duplex, those are just some of the embedded technologies to really bring together a next generation test bed. So this really goes above and beyond 5G to really explore what can be done in an urban environment. And then just to let you know that when NSF worked on this, they do have consortium members. Of course, Ericsson is on here. Ericsson has participated. It's sort of who's who in the zoo, and it's open to others. So if there are startups or other kinds of companies that wanted to engage, there's lots of different ways. One piece that is really important in terms of our founding involvement came from New York City. The CTO office has been an enormous advocate for us and has been doing a lot of things for us in New York City. So actually, New York City is committed to making sure we have access to light poles and different kinds of infrastructure. The first deployment, as you can see, is in this urban environment. It's in really on Columbia facilities, so we've been able to deploy it somewhat quickly. Our project is called Cosmos, as I mentioned. It just stands for Cloud Enhanced Open Software Defined Mobile Wireless Testbed. And the most important thing is for city scale deployment, right? And so it's really about having an environment to test the application layers, which Anika very nicely talked about, as well as Ed spoke about in terms of, telemedicine, smart cities to enable safe crossing. There's lots of different applications that could be tested out on this test bed. And the only thing to recognize in this slide that I wanted to share is that it is being deployed, and it allows things like edge computing and very high bandwidth and low latency to enable those kinds of applications. And I think now I should stop. I guess, do I stop sharing to allow the video?
Yes, Eric, you will upload the video, right?
Yep.
Excellent.
All right. Now, everyone, please let me know if you can hear this audio as it's coming in.
Wireless technology is evolving at a remarkable rate, with bit rates increasing by 4 orders of magnitude over 20 years, a higher growth rate than even Moore's law for computing. The Cosmos team believes that the Power Advanced Wireless Testbed should enable researchers to explore the technology sweet spot of ultra-high bandwidth and low latency, a capability that will enable a broad new class of real-time applications such as augmented reality navigation, smart city control, and cloud-based vehicles.
The community in New York is extremely interested in how technology can be brought to bear to improve the community, to make people's lives measurably better.
The mission is to transform Harlem into a tech and innovation hub. And what that means is creating opportunities for young people, in fact, creating opportunities intergenerationally for people to participate in the digital economy.
The Cosmos testbed has been designed as a multi-layered software-defined system which offers maximum flexibility for experimentation. The design goals are realized by using advanced software-defined radios, software-defined networks, optical networking, and edge computing technologies, achieving wideband and gigabit per second performance. Our design uses the latest software-controlled white box optical WDM and over fiber technologies to create experimental user customizable high-speed front haul and backhaul networks that provide a fast interconnect between radio nodes and edge computing clusters. The architecture introduces a high-performance cloud as an integral part of the access network. The compute cluster integrates graphical processing units and hardware accelerators for fast signal processing. Our testbed control and management software leverages proven open source software which has been successfully used for orbit and other testbeds worldwide. Rapid urbanization is shaping the world's economies and technological challenges of the 21st century. Deployed on the streets of New York, Cosmos will provide a dense urban environment that has a range of radio propagation characteristics, vehicular and pedestrian scenarios, and end-user demographics.
Columbia University is actually perfect for this testbed because we spread out over so much of New York. We have hundreds of residential buildings, academic buildings, all where we can deploy various Cosmos nodes. Our building infrastructure is connected by the Columbia dark fiber, which will be provided to the Cosmos testbed. We also have an infrastructure that is mobile. We have public safety vehicles, trucks, shuttles. All of this will be brought to the table for this testbed.
The infrastructure assets that New York has domain over is really important to this equation also. I think some of those assets that will be valuable are streetlight poles, buildings, other pieces of street furniture potentially. The value of this is to understand better how we can use this technology, not just to connect people to the internet or to connect people to each other, but also for us to think about how we can use a connected environment to do our jobs better, because we have that ability to generate data and to interconnect things.
Wireless experiments not currently supported by testbeds are made available to the research community by Cosmos. Core technology research problems include advanced radio techniques such as massive MIMO and adaptive beamforming, millimeter wave, heterogeneous networks, dynamic spectrum sharing, integration and convergence of optical and wireless technologies, and edge and radio cloud computing. These core advancements enable applications research such as telemedicine, automotive, advanced IoT for smart cities, and control of emergency and safety devices.
And taking it out of the laboratory and into the real urban setting in a way that arguably only New York could provide, I think is critical, not just to the way we understand that technology in New York and how we will use it to forward our endeavors and our goals, but truthfully, I think it will lend a lot of information and insight for cities across the country and frankly around the world.
And we at Silicon Harlem, working with the variety of teams, specifically with Columbia University, NYU, and Rutgers and others, has allowed us to attract these projects into Harlem, utilizing dark fiber inside of our city as a ring so that we can do real specific research, both hardware and software. These are the things we've dreamed of. So we believe it sets the model for the entire city and hopefully becomes a real model for the entire country and perhaps even the world.
As we like to say in New York, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere.
That's a lovely quote.
And then just to sort of emphasize, I just have a few more slides and then I will pass the baton off. Just to sort, can everybody see are my slides back up?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. So just to pull on the thread that was mentioned in the video about connecting to the outside world, we recently won another NSF opportunity, which is called Cosmos IC, and that's for interconnecting continents. So connecting to international test beds. And so this is something that we're in the process of, and I think we'd be very interested in expanding to include Sweden. And we know that Ericsson must have very, very strong footprints and strong test beds themselves. And then just in closing, I just wanted to add, we're very proud of the education and outreach. And so we're able to use this test bed to create different kinds of educational experiences. And I believe some of those are even being, sort of provided in an open source kind of a setting. So if folks were interested in that, that's something we could follow up with as well. And with that, let's see, I will stop sharing. And just let folks know that I would be happy to connect with anybody if there are additional interests or follow-up.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sharon. Super interesting to hear about these wireless test beds and how you're connecting across the world. Later on in this presentation, we will have, later on in this meeting, we will have a presentation from IDEA on Swedish Science Park, and hoping that you guys might be able to connect as well and create some further opportunities for collaboration there. But in the meantime, staying focused on the great New York City, I would like to give the floor to Sandra Dolder, Vice President of Industry and Economic Innovation at the New York City Economic Development Corporation. Please, Sandra, the floor is yours.
All right. And hi, Sharon. I haven't talked to you in a while, but good seeing you here. I will share my presentation right now. Let's see. And
right, that's loading now.
Yeah, it's loading. All right. And so thank you for inviting me this morning or afternoon in Sweden. There's a couple things I'm going to breeze through just because I don't want to be repetitive, and I think that there's all our colleagues from upstate and also Sharon in New York have highlighted some things that I feel are really important to sort of the connection of 5G in New York State and New York City. But before I get to the presentation, I just wanted to give a little background about myself. I work for the New York City Economic Development Corporation. It's essentially the business development arm for the city of New York. And I work in a group that's really looking at how to diversify the New York City economy. And over the years, I've been really sort of focused on all the industries that are related to urban innovation, clean energy and sustainability, and to a certain extent, manufacturing. And so as we're looking at 5G and sort of what is happening in New York City, let me see here. Oh, there we go. There's the beginning of the rollout of the network. You know, all the big telecoms, Verizon is starting to implement some of their network across. One thought here is certainly that there's a focus from a city perspective to be inclusive of all the boroughs, and that's something from a city government side that we're continuously trying to push. As Sharon also mentioned, I think the Department of IT Services, or the CTO's office, has been working with thinking about how to use our current infrastructure to implement and improve some of the 5G rollout. And so there's a lot of agreements around installing equipment on light poles and traffic lights to kind of continue the proliferation of 5G technology in New York. And so, you know, I think one of the things that really kind of intersects with the smart city space and part of, you know, and Sharon talked about the Cosmos program is really sort of the ability of 5G and sensor technology to really work really well together, and for a lot of different reasons, technical reasons. And so that's something that we are consciously aware of, given that we've been looking at the smart city industry for quite a while now, and there has been some limitations, but we kind of see it as just like the LED lights transformed the lighting industry. We certainly see 5G and similar technologies transforming really the smart city space. And so I don't need to get into this too much, but there's just a lot of different solutions we're looking at. And this is, I would say, the way I've structured this presentation, first part is really sort of talking about the smart city space, but certainly the second half, I want to touch a little bit more about the current state and how we're thinking based on the pandemic and post-pandemic, sort of what are some of the considerations that we need to take. But certainly, you know, anything from government services to security to transportation to energy efficiency, those are a lot of the areas that we're thinking of and looking to support. And so as we're thinking about supporting those areas, of course, this year changed everything for most of us. And in New York City, it's been really affected. Of course, early on, I think April, May has been the worst that we've hopefully will have to face here, although there's sort of the beginning of a second wave now. There's a lot of studies around how this is going to affect things, and really in New York City, you're looking at a really the real estate industry being hurt in terms of how do we rethink offices, certainly tourism and media and entertainment. There's certainly our transportation system is being affected, predominantly the public transportation system. And so as we're kind of thinking about what's ahead and how do we support different industries in New York, and thinking about how 5G can play a role in it, we have to consider how the city is going to change, how our industries are going to change. And so we kind of went through an exercise as internally in our department as the EDC to kind of think about, well, the previous crisis was really a financial crisis with a known structural problem. This crisis has it's multiple crises, and so how will we come out of this? And so we looked at a whole host of different factors. The main underlying thing is that consumer and business behavior will change, and we're not going to go back to where we were prior. It's going to look drastically different. And so we need to be comfortable with that, and we need to be comfortable understanding how it's going to change. And so a whole host of factors. I'm not going to go through all of this, but really the main ones are everything is becoming digital. And to a certain level, you're going to have a digital version of a lot of things that used to only be in real life. There's a big push for local manufacturing. I think that the cultural elements of New York City are going to suffer in the short term, but there's going to be a sort of a rebirth in the long term. The big corporations have benefited from the crisis. There's increased inequality. We need to rethink public space and also commercial space. And so there's a whole host of things. The main point here is that most of these trends are things that have been already happening, and the current crisis just helped accelerate it. And so to address that, I think we're doing a couple things, and this is sort of where I think 5G can play an interesting role in that. On one hand, in the immediate term, you're seeing a complete shift, and the biggest area of difficulty, or one of them, is small businesses. So anything from retail to personal care to entertainment and nightlife to the restaurant scene, they're going to suffer the most. There's that's we'll say over 50, over 60 small businesses, percentage of small businesses are going to fail. And so what do we do? And so there's a lot of services that are kind of thinking about supporting small businesses from a financial perspective and from from digital services perspective. But what the Program Neighborhood Challenge is looking to do is really thinking about what's the future of small businesses. So how can we adapt retail, restaurants, entertainment for this future that is going to happen? And that's sort of where, for instance, 5G can really play a role. And we're having some discussions with some corporate partners about leveraging their technology to create a forum for innovation in this space. So for instance, if you're thinking about entertainment, live streaming is going to become an increasingly big area for them, where you have a live, in addition to a concert that could happen in the future, you would have a live stream potential there, where someone can pay a quarter of the price for the ticket and watch it on their television, on their phone, etc. But also the real life version. There's a lot of solutions around public space and safety, where some of these solutions can really help these small businesses recover. A little bit more of a broader systems-wide issue is public transportation. And this is something that we've been thinking about prior. We've been working on it prior. And it's certainly shifted now given the current crisis, but really thinking about mobility, the transformation of the mobility sector. There's a lot of innovation out there around micromobility, around new forms of transportation. And given that we strongly believe in public transportation, that the subway is the backbone, the artery of New York City's transportation system, we want to build, we've been looking and collaborating with the MTA and other transportation entities to really think about this digital layer to it. How do we connect all these transportation modes together? How do we make it seamless for the customer? How do we create a platform that enables a fair system for everyone? And 5G can play a crucial role in this because of the hyper precise location potential from that technology, the ability to seamlessly create a transportation experience from the moment you leave your door till you get to your destination, and everything being able to sync accordingly. And so that's one layer where we feel there's a lot of potential and we're looking into. Of course, with 5G, I think one of the big things beyond sort of how to address public health in New York City is going to be adapting to climate change and what do we need to do to enable that. And so 5G technology will enable a lot more sensors, as previously mentioned, to measure things in real time. And we feel that's going to be very impactful and beneficial to the sort of plans we rolled out in the past, such as One NYC, which is a comprehensive sustainability plan. So to be able to monitor and measure progress is going to be something that we feel is important. As our ESD colleagues mentioned previously, and Edward mentioned around offshore wind rollout, which is, I believe, the biggest in North America. We are looking to support from our end in terms of, I'm going back, I'm getting ahead of myself. Thinking about how do we support this growing industry, and 5G is going to play a part of it. We need to think about the entire energy system. Creating an offshore system is going to have deep implications to our overall energy grid. So anything from battery technology to transmission to building efficiency, there's a lot there that technology like 5G can really bring real-time information and analytics. I'm not going to get into this too much because Sharon already highlighted, but research, the R&D side of it is crucial to this. It's a new technology we need to explore further. Creating a center of gravity for research is going to really help New York City be ahead of the game when it comes to understanding 5G technology and its application, particularly in the urban environment. On our end, we do a lot of support for the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and we feel that that's also crucial to a healthy rollout of a new technology. So we do a lot of things from supporting and creating new incubators and accelerators to supporting growing companies in New York City through different kinds of real estate assets and programs, to thinking about how do we open up New York City for more prototyping, testing, demonstrations on the city's infrastructure. And then lastly, I think, and Edward also mentioned this a little bit, it's crucial for us to think about building an equity lens towards the rollout of 5G and broadband. As we've seen with this crisis, the access to fast internet is crucial to education. It's crucial to a lot of the services that everyone in New York needs to have. And so we are consciously thinking about what that can look like. Despite our very, very, very limited budgets, we are trying to be how to do this. And 5G plays a crucial role on that. I think anything from cloud gaming to education, there's a clear need and clear benefits from really having fast, reliable internet. And so that's something we are constantly thinking with every single initiative that we're doing. And so I'll stop right there. Feel free to contact me. And happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Sander. Lovely to hear about more opportunities in New York City. And indeed, looking back at this presentation here from Sander and Sharon, we wanted to let you know that we were planning a study visit as well to the Wireless Testbed Center here in North Manhattan in Harlem. Obviously, the COVID situation and pandemic has put some, has created some inconveniences in that planning, but we're hoping to be able to follow up on that early next year when hopefully things look better and perhaps people are able to travel as well and visit us from Sweden again. So looking forward to following up on that with everybody. Now to our next presentation, and I think we'll have to skip this break as we are running a bit short on time. Hope that's okay with everybody. You're able to get your coffees in between. But now I would like to introduce one of our thought leaders as a Swedish company with long history in the US and across the world. From Ericsson, please, Rohit Banot, Vice President of Public Sector Market and Hypercloud, if you would like to take the floor. 1 second,
mute. Yeah, thank you, Martin. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm honored to be speaking to the distinguished group. First of all, thank you to you, Eric, and as well as big thank you to the Consulate General of Sweden for hosting this event. I'll just start with a brief introduction, and I'll go off of video because I think where I am today, there's been some bandwidth contention with some of the other folks. So I don't want to use that up a lot, and I'll go into, I'll share my content. But just by way of introduction, I'm Vice President at Ericsson, leading one of our hyperscale cloud provider practice. Prior to this, it's a very recent role for me, and prior to this, I was heading the federal and public sector technology pursuits, quite involved in the public safety space. So it's been a long-standing passion of mine. I've long been associated in the space with public safety, as well as safe cities and smart cities. I'm also one of the chairs at the CTIO's smart city working groups. So I jumped at this opportunity because I think there's so much going on in the world today that's basically highlighting the critical need we have for safety in our communities, in our cities. And I wanted to share a few thoughts around what we at Ericsson, as well as everyone around us as our partners, customers, are doing with respect to technology and the solutions that the technology affords us in safeguarding the cities. So with that, I'll go ahead and share some of the content and walk through it. Hi, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, brilliant. So, just one of the things, I've been in some of the discussions, and it's been great content so far. I was, taking some notes, and Sandra, I think you've stolen my thunder. So I'll move the conversation along a little bit. Specifically to 5G, but an interesting question I get when I'm in some of these forums has been, or at least I like to ask the question is, what is a smart city? And frankly, if you're in a room full of even say 100 people, you tend to get about 150 different definitions of smart city, and that speaks to the phenomenon itself and how it's so personal to people, and their varying needs and understandings of what a city should do. We've talked about the smart city phenomenon in the last, I would say, 5 years. It's really picked up, but it's not an old phenomenon, right? If you look at some of the drainage systems in ancient Rome, or the traffic wardens in early sort of mid 1800s in England, these were all smart ideas leading to some level of a smart city solution. So I think what changed is in the recent years is the emergence of 4G, the first I would say technology of its kind that allowed us to do voice video data on a single in a single pipe, as well as brought in I would say an exponential increase in bandwidth throughput. and decrease in latency. Take a step, well, we take a leap forward to 5G, and that essentially is fueling today a lot of the smart city evolution that we see. And within the smart city realm, I would say there's a very critical subset, which is safe cities, and this phenomenon of safe cities, and it's taken on a life of its own, given I would say the last couple of years, the certainly this year being unique in its way, but even going back the last couple of years to some of the threats, be it weather related or man-made or terrorist type of threats that we've seen, and safe cities become such a growing phenomenon. And it's for the first time in history that we're seeing more people around the world living in cities than they've ever lived before. So I think there's a statistical statistic that says that in 2030, 78% of the world population will be living in cities. So, that essentially creates huge challenges when it comes to city infrastructure, resources, security procedures, as well as emergency response systems. And meeting these challenges has become critical to the success of these cities, and it will be such in the decades that follow. The safe city concept was essentially developed precisely to help these government stakeholders, city leaderships, mayors, and police departments to mitigate some of these challenges. And in the last few years, certainly with 4G and 5G, what we've seen is an emergence of Internet of Things, predictive analytics, big data, real-time response procedures, emergency response systems, and that really is fueling this development of the safe city phenomenon. So if you look at sort of what on this slide, if you look at some of the thumbnails, it's sort of with the exception of the healthcare, which I'll make a mental note, I should have put that in there, EMS healthcare. But this sort of covers pretty much the core facets of our society today, right? From a safety perspective, there's public safety, there's utility, it's a core need of ours. There's transportation, and there's just security and recovery efforts. And if you look at what 4G and 5G are doing with the enhanced with the enhanced throughput, with 5G, I think it was recently quoted, it's almost 100 times more throughput than we had seen in the 4G networks, and under ideal circumstances, and under 1 millisecond latency. It basically enables real-time intelligence, predictive analytics, and the massive throughput allows for the massive connectivity of devices and sensors. I know this is something that we've talked about in some of the talks about sensors and Internet of Things, and using these to be able to provide information, manipulate information, analyze data, and be able to provide very responsive elements to the folks who are on the front lines. So when we think about what we are experiencing this year, and it certainly brings to the forefront the need for the evolution of public safety, not just to centered around anti-crime or practices or threat mitigation from certain bad characters or ill-intended people, but it certainly brings to the forefront the health of our communities and how we can use that technology, such as 5G and broadband, to enhance feed more into the preventative measures, and generally be able to address some of the unique challenges that this current pandemic has presented. So many local governments, I believe, are struck with the current pandemic, and we certainly believe as a technologist and a leader in 5G, we've seen connectivity, edge latency, very inherent characteristics of 5G could help in a big way. Oftentimes when you look at 5G and we look at the use cases, we think of real-time streaming and massive throughputs for some of the media content that we like to absorb. But really, if you start to peel the layers back, we look at features such as ultra-reliable communications and edge computing, which brings compute, storage, and networking closer to the applications and devices and users. So when you put that in the context of the pandemic and public health emergencies, what emerges is a need for widespread data monitoring and reliable wireless networking. The way to enable frontline pandemic fighters, our frontline workers, like medical personnel and first responders, is with an upgraded network providing time-sensitive operation and a range of low to high data transmit capacity and cellular network small cell densification. So New York City is probably one of the most challenging environments, yet probably one of the best environments to test this against because of the sheer demand, about 9 million in population, and the densified sort of nature of the city. And we believe that 5G is very well equipped to create these to enable these applications. And the question I often get is, well, we could do Internet of Things and we could do sensor connectivity with 4G. So what is 5G doing that's inherently different? Yes, that's right. We have been able to do the Internet of Things and sensor connectivity and massive machine-to-machine communications with 4G. 5G brings to the forefront the ultra low latency as well as the massive throughput that far trumps what 4G does. And what we do with this information is where what we do with this information and apply things like artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms, complex algorithms, and be able to spit out information in real time that becomes very actionable, utilizing several different logic algorithms, business logics, and be able to provide the very accurate information to the frontline workers is where I think this 5G clearly stands apart from its predecessor standard technologies. I wanted to share this chart really to show the sort of the wide spectrum of use cases, specifically within the realm of safe cities that 5G is enabling. And if you start from the left-hand side, things like monitoring and threat detection and smart surveillance, situational awareness, these are things that we've seen again with some of the 4G operations, but essentially 5G, we're starting to see new, I would say, almost use cases on steroid emerge, even within these applications, right? And for instance, I think contact tracing, real-time video, and thermal. When you start looking at threat detection, monitoring, and tracking within the public safety and health safety realm, you can think of contact tracing, thermal sensors to detect temperature and other symptoms play a huge role, and being able to analyze and assess that information and provide other useful data to either for instance, say a passenger in a bus as all the other passengers are being screened, or to the nearest frontline workers who may be first responders or medical personnel about certain situations or conditions or individuals is key. So of course, we're seeing other use cases emerge which utilize augmented reality, virtual reality, and real-time automation, which again, key when you start looking at the number of frontline personnel we have today and just sheer demand for medical attention. So even something basic as concepts of telemedicine, where you're diagnosing or meeting patients over video, which is certainly not always possible given where you are, very dependent on where you are and what type of bandwidth and connectivity you have. But taking that further, when you start to look at things that we're doing in terms of haptic feedback and utilizing low latency from in a 5G type of environment, and going beyond just video diagnostics or video consultations with doctors. So it's all very relevant. And to Sandra's point, I would like to echo that certainly the pandemic that we're in today has been a huge catalyst in our partners, the service providers, the software developers, and other industry stakeholders to work and collaborate together to bring some of these things to fruition. I know I'm short on time, so in summary, I'd like to say that we Ericsson are clearly best known for our leadership in telecom infrastructure and the global leader in 5G, working with the commercial service providers of the world. What is not, I would say, unfortunately, a well-known thing about Ericsson or point about Ericsson is we work extensively with the public sector in bringing the same technologies that some of the bleeding edge, cutting edge technology that we provide solutions for to the telecom service providers into our communities, into our cities, with the government, within initiatives such as safe cities, smart transportation, as well as more at a national security, federal DoD level, and that's one of the things I'm absolutely thrilled about in talking to the folks here and being part of this is the opportunity to expose some of you to some of the solutions that we bring to the market, and really, it takes a considerable amount of effort, understanding, and consultation with folks such as yourself and the city leaderships and stakeholders to actually tailor and tweak these solutions so that they're not basically one size fits all. It's one size fits one, because certainly a 5G core that serves 110 million subscribers, say at Verizon, needs to be massively tweaked, and with respect to form factor, functionality, everything, to serve, say, a smaller city like Jackson, Mississippi, for instance, to meet some of their smart city, safe city needs. I think we're also, I would say in summary, it's been a collaborative effort with the government, with the commercial service providers, mobile network operators, as well as key stakeholders in this in the safe city ecosystem that has led to this journey and the transition, not only of the technology and business, but also in contributing to the business model, which is a key to success here. So, folks, that's all I had today. I hope this has been useful. Certainly happy to take questions, or I believe Martin has my contact information. If there's anything that we can help, even from thought leadership, from consultation, and from an advisory perspective, we're happy to get plugged in any way.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Rohit. Great to get that industry perspective as well. And continuing on that note, in terms of industry, I would now like to give the floor to Kim Scoville, who's Executive Director for iCERT, the Industry Council for Emergency and Response Technologies, giving us a bit more of a federal perspective, but also working closely with New York, of course. Kim, the floor is yours, please.
All right. Thank you very much. Let me get my slideshow going.
There we are.
Yep. Can you see it? Fantastic. Well, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good day to everybody. Thanks for attending the program, and special thanks, of course, to Martin at Business Sweden and to the Swedish Consulate for hosting us. As he noted, I am Kim Robert Scoville. I'm Executive Director of iCERT, which stands for the Industry Council for Emergency Response Technologies. I'm also a former resident for a long time of Rochester, New York, an area I and my family greatly enjoyed. And I'm happy to join Ed and Joel and Sharon and Sander and Rohit here today, and to speak very briefly about business and technology development in the public safety arena, and in particular, public safety's excitement regarding 5G and advanced services. I thought Sharon's notes about comment, and of course about Cosmos, and Rohit's discussions were very interesting in this regard, and you'll hear many similar themes, which I think validates that the industry in general, public safety, has embraced many of these trends and technologies for good and fundamental reasons, and hopes to do more and build on them. Now, of course, it's a large topic, and I'm confident you'll appreciate that my comments are at a very high level. They're iCERT's comments. I'm not representing any particular iCERT member's views. And Martin will be sharing the slides, I'm sure, along with the video. But if anybody needs to reach me directly, my contact information will be available, and I'll be happy to send our slides or to anyone who might need them. Quick word about iCERT. I think many of us are introducing ourselves to each other and our organizations for the first time. So allow me a minute or so to talk about iCERT. We are a 15-year-old or a trade association. In fact, we're the only international, national, US-based trade association exclusively representing commercial public safety entities, and many of whom, of course, are New York-based and operate in New York State. And several of our members are currently involved with New York City's NG 911 upgrade and initiative. But our membership is diverse, to put it mildly. Our members range from private and commercial wireless network providers, LMR providers, cloud providers. Both Microsoft and AWS are on our board of directors. We have software companies, analytics companies, a big area in public safety, growing area in public safety, ESINet providers, traditional NG 911s, integrators, CAD providers. If you're in the public safety space, we probably have one of your competitors, one of your smart competitors, already as an iCERT member. So if you provide services in the public safety arena, we have a home for you in iCERT. Our initiatives are pretty obvious for a trade association, and we try and work hard at them. We advocate at all levels of government, state, local, federal, for increased funding in public safety. Money drives the business model, drives innovation. The more money government can spend and infuse into the ecosystem, the better all our members do, and frankly, the better public safety does. We certainly advocate for the use and application of public safety technologies, education, explanation. Public technologies are a force multiplier. They can save money. All the good things that everybody wants from government services, so we advocate for that. And of course, we continually look for ways to help our members meet their organic and marketplace goals. Their operations, revenue, goals, all those things that help them succeed as businesses. And because the better they do, the better, of course, we do. And so we're always looking for opportunities to do that. And some of the examples of just a few of the things we do, some very unique to iCERT. We send RFP and RFI leads to our members every single day. These are brand new business opportunities that our members receive at no extra charge with membership. We have an innovative arrangement with an insurance broker who deals almost exclusively in the communications marketplace, and so they have special programs and discounts for telecommunications companies. We have newsletters, meetings. We do all the traditional stuff that you might expect a trade association to do. In particular, we have fantastic relationships with all of the current public safety associations, NENA and APCO, NASDA, and I hope from today we'll be expanding our relationships with more business development groups and associations. I'm always happy and look forward to the opportunity to network and find opportunities for our members to be speakers, to explain our programs and services. All those things are very important. And the education about public safety is important to people as well as to business. So we take every opportunity to do that we can. We promote the interest of our members because our members, as leading public safety providers, large and small, they directly benefit, of course, the public safety ecosystem, and when that does better, everybody does better and is safer. And we're happy and proud of our exceptional efforts since 2005. So if you have an interest, we're around. We're happy to help. From a high level, what is 5G from a benefits perspective that impacts public safety? And Rohit noted several of these, so I'm glad to validate his comments. Of course, performance, bandwidth, lower latency, those are all very important. By definition, really by the architecture of the technology, 5G increases signal density, more towers, more antennas, greater coverage. That's going to lead to improved mobility performance, improved overall performance, but particularly for public safety, improved mobility performance. One that I hadn't thought of until I did more research and talked to some members is redundancy. In a disaster scenario, a flood or a hurricane or, a fire, you name the disaster, and seems like we've had them all lately, redundancy is important. So 5G and 4G networks are going to coexist for a long time. And it also provides the ability for public safety entities that want to go this route to have multiple carriers. So the long and short of it is increased redundancy, and that's a bottom line. Seems very basic, foundational, but that's important to public safety. And of course, anytime they can increase their redundancy and reliability, they're interested in that. And of course, new services. As Rohit noted, the more you start thinking about increased performance and bandwidth and lower latency, your imagination and your technical possibilities for new services starts to snowball, and all kinds of new things become possible. For example, with looking at in lower latency and increased bandwidth, all sorts of video applications, everything related to video, whether that's situational awareness, body cams, which that's used to be a new thing, that's old hat now. Anything related to video, in-car video, traffic video, drone video, all those things become much more accessible and much more possible because of the benefits to the network of a 5G infrastructure. Another one that I hadn't thought of that's becomes obvious to public safety folks is the extension of web-based applications. It's one thing to have to build an application for a narrowband network, but when you can take your current web-based application and just extend it because the network is smarter and faster and has lower latency, suddenly all sorts of tangential intelligence and administrative services that were only available if you were at your desktop or had a good connection suddenly can be downshifted to the car or to the ambulance And this greatly increases their efficacy, the timeliness of those applications. It just was an interesting perspective on how public safety can be enhanced by 5G and related technologies. Of course, with signal density and coverage, much more accurate location and the promise of really accurate indoor location. All of these are very important. I mean, location has incredible value to public safety. You just name the scenario or use case. Someone doesn't know where they are, can't say where they are. It's a sensor that needs to transmit location. It's moving. It's a crisis in motion. All of those things. And as I noted in mobility performance, you know, the concept of we talk about smart cities, or Rohit talked about smart cities. What about the smart ambulance or the smart fire truck that, you know, on the way to the hospital or the emergency room, the EMS technicians are doing critical work that they couldn't do before because they might have real-time video and technology connectivity to doctors and services en route. I don't know. You can imagine any one of a number of scenarios in that perspective, and it you know, just let your imagination run wild. Redundancy, reliability, talked about that. You know, having 4 and 5G services back each other up, and of course multiple carriers. Should something happen, somebody have an infrastructure or software problem, as does happen, having the ability to have redundancy is important. And then new services. And I just, you know, the laundry list of this is very long, and I just picked a few. iCERT has been active for the past several years in the drone space, and our members are always asking what's going on with drones. And now we're seeing providers that are, and jurisdictions, I should say, that are using drones as the first responder. There are a few cutting edge companies that have partnered with public safety agencies that when you make an emergency call, the first person that shows up is a drone. And the reduction in response times is amazing. You know, you can sometimes get a drone in under 2 or 3 minutes. A drone can be in your driveway, and it might be with a defibrillator or a insulin shot or a Narcan for a drug overdose. It's amazing. I've seen the demos and it's just amazing. Already talked about telemedicine, patient data, video evidence, being able to preserve video information, catalog it, analyze it, accident scene measurements, all kinds of things can be done faster and better. And of course, I talked about the application of web-based services, or the web application being accessible to the person in the remote location. You know, you're all familiar with all sorts of analytic services, predictive models that could be available, language translation, a lot of web-based language translation, but hard to get that down to the car or get that to the officer or the EMS person on site. But with a more robust network, it's possible to take that web application and get it down there and make it available in real time. I didn't even begin to scratch the surface on ticketing and database services and things related to mundane financial management and administration, record keeping, but all those things, of course, that if they're available in a web application, being able to get them to the ultimate user sooner increases the amount of information and the usefulness of those services and those products. So there you go. I know we're short on time, so I kept my comments high level. Happy to follow up with who would have any questions about anything we've said, and happy for anybody who would like to work with us or join us. And so, Martin, I'll send it back to you.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Kim. And appreciate you trying to keep that concise. We are running short on time, and I apologize for that, but we at least have an opportunity to introduce our last speaker for the day, and that is Mia Rolf, CEO of Lund Science Park. Please, the floor is yours now, Mia. Kim, if you would like to stop sharing your screen. And yeah, there we go. Excellent.
Do you see it? Yes.
Yes.
So I'm gonna shorten my presentation because I realize people are leaving the meeting right now. Hang on. I just want to say that you know that Sweden is frequently ranked as second in the world within innovation, but we're also second in the world on the UN index of countries working towards the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. This means that innovations from Sweden usually also are sustainable. We're working hard to reach that goal. IDEON Science Park is a part of the Sweden ICT group. It's the big 6 science parks in Sweden, containing innovations around ICT, and that covers about 2,400 innovation companies and the entire Sweden. And as you see on this map, we're located in the very south of Sweden, 45 minutes from Copenhagen International Airport in Denmark, actually. And at IDEON Science Park, we have 400 companies today, plus, I would say, and about 10,000. Many of them are working from home right now. We work with 4 focus areas where I think that smart cities and future transportation are the closest to what you're looking at, looking for in New York State. And I won't go into this because everybody's already talked about this. So I just want to say that we have a long history from IDEON Science Park. For the past 37 years we've been around. We have a history of the first creating the first networks surveillance camera in 1996, the Bluetooth technology in 94, some of the modems for IoT connected items 2015, and the first respirator 1926. Actually, that was not in our science park, but before that. And this is my last slide. So this is a super short presentation. I just wanted to point out some examples of Swedish innovations that could actually fit into the public safety or public smart transportation area. And I'll just quickly go through it. And if you want to know more, I have all the links in my presentation. So you just click on them and you find them. So the network connected surveillance camera from Access Communication is actually present in New York City today. It's one of the largest security companies in the world today. It started in our incubator in the 80s. Face recognition is one of the other innovation here, where you could open doors or access entrance or log into anything with your face, and you could actually send invitations to other people that you know are coming to visit you, and the door will automatically open up if they come close to the door. IoT security or non-hacking systems from Sony, which is actually creating new innovations here in the park. Sony Creative, and they have a safety system going down to the hardware, which is a step further from the SIM card. And then we have something that has been really interesting now in the COVID-19 situation, an employee global safety warning system, you could say, SafeTure, and they have analyst centers globally, and analyzes big movements around the globe to detect if you have like catastrophes like earthquakes or viruses, and they can warn employees in certain areas. And they were actually able to warn IKEA employees in Asia to move out of the most dangerous zones in the early spring. There could also be a gas leak, and that if you are afraid of those, you could have a simulation system that's called SimTech from here. And we have also something that is a fever measurement system in public groups. that's called IMA4 or IMA4. And of course, if anyone has a heart issue, you have the heart compression machine, Lucas, this from here. And if you want more of those resilience technology, you could go to the WindGuard cluster that's actually gathered Swedish and national groups of technology for this. And then if you move into the public smart transportation, we have some vehicle-to-vehicle communication where the communication doesn't have to go up into the internet, not on the 5G, but off-grid, and they're called TerraNet. You have electric charging directly on the road, so on the fly, they call it, El on Road. They're testing now with public buses, so they don't have to build so much electricity charging stations all around, which is very, very expensive and hard to find space. You have digital public transport traffic sign systems with using real-time data, that's called Gaia. Self-driving buses and trucks, of course, you've heard of the big Swedish innovation companies Scania and Volvo. They're now testing with the self-driving both trucks and buses actually, and then they usually need to have some vehicle-to-vehicle communication so the traffic actually adjusts itself. So that's really interesting. In smaller innovations, we have micro radars for short range detection from Aconeer. That's a very small radar innovation that could look through plastic, so they could be on the inside of a vehicle, for instance, and you can have, they use a very little electricity, so you could actually have several of them on different angles to be more secure in public transports. And of course, access communications, surveillance camera networks also works on traffic, public traffic vehicles. And I would say something that we didn't talk about here around public safety is actually creating a cashless society. And the parking app Parkster uses that, so you can find a parking lot and pay with your app directly. And in Sweden, we actually moving into a cashless society through another innovation called Swish, where we pay directly through our phones and identify with bank ID. I don't know if it's already in place in New York State, but that's also something that's been developed in Sweden. So that was a kind of small range candy trap for you. And if you want more innovation contacts in Sweden, since we are connected to the entire nation innovation, please don't hesitate to contact me. That was the fastest I've ever done, I think.
That's great. Thank you so much, Mia, and apologies for rushing you here. We are just over time, and I am sad to not be able to open the floor now for a further roundtable discussion. But we have from our presenters here contact information, and we are at your service as well to be able to connect you with any of these speakers and share presentations or this video when that has been processed. So on behalf of Business Sweden and the Consulate General in New York, I would like to thank everyone so much for assisting. Please stay in touch with us and let us know if you have any questions or help that we can follow up with you on, and looking forward to continuing this dialogue in perhaps physical forum next year, if not virtually again. Thank you so much again for joining. To all our presenters and our participants, have a nice afternoon or rest of the day in New York.
Thank you. Bye-bye.